a job for 3 years as a gardener for the city of Toronto. Before that, I had been a filmmaker and a journalist and a writer, but I kind of wanted to get back down to the earth. So here I am, I'm a gardener for the city of Toronto, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm pretty good at gardening. And I really wanted to find a way to get involved in my own community, to meet other gardeners. Here, do you guys have like gardening groups where people get together, just as gardeners, not necessarily urban ag? But you know, in Toronto, certain neighborhoods have gardening groups. My neighborhood didn't have one. And I wanted to work with other people. So I thought, okay, I'm going to come up with a project. And the project that I came up with was planting fruit trees in my local park. I knew that there were lots of initiatives in the city where people were growing vegetables. And I thought, well, fruit trees, they gotta be easier, right? Because you plant them once, you water them and you care for them, and then you get lots of fruit for years, but yet you can go work together, and I thought we'd have a pollinator garden. So, out of the people who have ever played with a fruit tree, are fruit trees easy to grow? Exactly. Why didn't you tell me that before I started this initiative? I wish I had talked to you guys. So what happens is we go through a really interesting process to get permission to plant fruit trees in the local park. And from what I'm hearing here, you guys have fabulous support from the City of London. I also really got great support. I got neighbors who wanted to plant the trees with me. There were some in the neighborhood that weren't so keen. They didn't want fruit trees in our park. Why wouldn't they want fruit trees in the park? Is there any downside?
Some people don't like bees, some people don't like mess on the ground.
Some people don't like bees. Some people don't like mess on the ground. Some people, believe it or not, don't want increased rapes and murders, which apparently are related to fruit tree planting. I'm absolutely serious. I am absolutely serious. So we had a small group of people who really didn't want the project. We had envisioned a really nice big project. It's a little park, but we wanted, I think it was 28 fruit trees and some native trees as well. Because of the opponents who went door to door and got people to sign petitions saying they don't want a fruit farm in their local park. So because of that, we worked with our fabulous city councillor, and he came up with a compromise because he understood that these orchards are for all of us, like the parks are for everybody. And so we got 14 fruit trees. Planted those fruit trees in the ground, and it's kind of like, does anybody ever had a newborn baby? So you get this baby, right, and you're like, okay, what do I do with it now? So we had the fruit trees in the ground, and we're like, oh, okay, well, I know you're supposed to prune fruit trees, but I'm not sure really how. So I'm a journalist by background, so I'm like, okay, I'll find some local people who know how to prune fruit trees. I could not find anybody. I couldn't find anybody in Toronto. I know there must be many people from ethnic communities or whatever. I couldn't find anybody who would talk to us. So I brought in people from the Niagara region to teach us. Anyways, it started a really big and very beautiful journey of learning about fruit trees and their care. And from a person who thought I could plant these babies in the ground and then they would automatically take care of me and love me up and give me fruit without me doing that much more than watering, I became a person who realized, oh my goodness, there is quite a bit involved. So, the first mistake I made is planting fruit trees and not knowing what diseases and pest problems to look for. So fruit trees, I always say they're kind of like kids in kindergarten. Whatever's going around whips around the whole kindergarten. So if there's something called fire blight, do you guys know what fire blight looks like? I don't know if you had a problem this year with fire blight. You certainly did. Yeah, so one tree gets it, a lot of you get it, right? It can be pear trellis rust. Oh my gosh, we had a problem. Have you guys had that here? Orange spots on your pear trees? Oh my God, that was ripping around a few years ago. It's like one after another after another. So one of the things that I've learned on my 7-year odyssey is that it's best to know what these diseases look like even before your tree gets sick. Because with most of these problems, if you can identify them early on, you can get rid of them, and they're gone. If you wait, then it can get too late. So how do I know this? Because that's how I started out. So back to the pear trellis rust. When we planted our 3 pear trees, one of them had like one little orange spot on it. And I'm walking by and thinking, oh, that's normal. That must be normal, right? And then the next year, there's like a bunch of these orange spots on them, and I'm like, you know what? It'll go away on its own. By the end of the season, those poor little pear trees were covered with these orange spots. And I realized as the head of this initiative, and having a lot of people looking at me, not a lot, but a small group of people looking at me saying, we want you to get it wrong, because we didn't want this orchard here. So I'm like, you know what? I better figure this out. I go to the trees, I look at these leaves with the orange spots, I flip them over, and man, it looked like an alien invasion. It was disgusting. Underneath those orange spots were these little horrible like spores, they're fungal spores, but it looked really scary and weird. So I'm like, okay, got to do something about this. And my beautiful mentor, Norm Herbert, who taught me early on how to prune and all sorts of other stuff, I sent Norm a picture. I said, Norm, what is this? We have a problem. And Norm said, I don't know. So I'm like, oh boy, Norm doesn't know. So and can anybody guess why Norm Herbert didn't know what this was, pear trellis rust?
Maybe he sprays with chemicals.
Exactly. Norm is amazing. Norm is amazing, and he's really into organics, but he worked for E.D. Smith Farms, managing their orchard for like, I don't know, 25 plus years. And E.D. Smith Farms was not organic. So they did do sprays, and he never saw that once. So here the moral of the story, in that particular story, is that fruit trees do come with problems. They're not like native trees. I wish they were. Native trees get problems too, but fruit trees are a little more sensitive. So I only have a few minutes to talk to you guys, but I wanted to bring a few points that if you are going to get involved in planting fruit trees, what I would suggest. First of all, for every planting, I would suggest, and I'm sure we're going to go into more detail, there should always be maybe 2 or 3 people who are committed to learning about fruit trees, how they grow, how to take care of them. They should know how to identify there's like 6 main diseases that fruit trees get. And they should make sure that the key fruit tree care tasks happen every single year. And that could be feeding your tree in the early spring, making sure your tree gets food, pruning your tree every year from the very first year those little guys are planted. Because we want to create an incredibly open structure for your tree, open and beautiful, where sun gets to every branch and where air circulation can happen, right? So that's another key thing, monitoring for pests and disease. And of course, when your trees are young tree care is very different. Okay, let's put it out to you guys. How do you care differently for, and many of you have had fruit trees, for young trees, how is the care different? When you first plant a tree for the first, let's say, year or 2.
You should mulch around to ensure they're not going to lose water, and you should make, if it like this year, which is very dry, you need to water continually or your tree's not going to make it.
I love how you say, or your tree's not going to make it. Because, you hear stories about children who are malnourished, and you think, oh, maybe Africa, but it happens here in our country too. If a child is malnourished in the early years, they will have health problems as they grow up. Fruit trees are the same. The first 3 years are key. So you want to make sure that those trees are babied and nurtured, watered, mulched, fantastic, so you're keeping all the weeds away, a nice mulch circle, and fed. So I always say, do people feed their pets? Do you feed your pets, or do you expect the pets to go get their own food? You feed your pets, right? But trees, your pets, if you throw your cat outside, he or she will find a mouse or something. What's your fruit tree going to do once it's consumed all the beautiful nutrition in the soil? And by the way, I don't know if it's like this here. In Toronto, the soil is not very nutritious. So here we are, we're taking these babies, we're planting them in the ground. So having people in every group who are committed to those trees. It's funny because Laura, from a group not far from the tree, she came up to me one day. This was a few years after I had planted Ben Nobleman Park and I had gone on this amazing, I write about it in my book, the journey that I went on and the learning that I had. She said, Susan, I'm just wondering how much care does your orchard take? Like, we're thinking of planting some community orchards around the city. And I said, I will be responsible for those trees for the rest of my life. It's not a zucchini plant, right? That at the end of the year, you put it in the compost. This is a commitment and it's a responsibility. So that's what I would say. Other lessons learned, so pruning I mentioned starts from the very first year. And yeah, what was the other thing I wanted to say here to you guys? I have so many stories to tell. Well, let me put it this way. So what happened with me is I planted Ben Nobleman Park Community Orchard, got a group of people, we work on it, we love it, we've built incredible community. We've become a bit of a role model. So our park was called Ben Nobleman Park. And nobody ever heard of this park. It's like twice the size of this room, maybe 3 times. It's not a big park. And once we planted our orchard, other groups were going to Parks, Forestry, and Recreation, and they were saying, oh, we want to be like Ben Nobleman Park. We want fruit trees. And when the Parks and Rec people said that to me, it's like, how do they even know the name of our park? But it went around, and so I started to go around, see these projects, see that people were making the same mistakes that I made. Planting the wrong trees, planting in the wrong space, planting in a swamp, whatever it was. There's a lot of mistakes you can make. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to make that mistake. I did that one. Can I tell you how not to make that one? And that's what happened. And then people started coming to me. And now I am working with a number of different initiatives across the city of Toronto in various amazing communities where people are planting fruit trees. So I help them choose the right trees for their space, making sure they are disease resistant, which sadly doesn't mean disease proof, but it means you get a bit of an advantage. And making sure they're planting in the right space and making sure that they are trained to care for the trees. And it's not hard, but you just have to know what to do. You need to know what to do, that's all. So I worked as a consultant, and in the process I wrote my book. So my book was essentially, I realized there are a lot of people out there all over the place who want to learn how to plant fruit trees, who maybe don't have a resource just like I did. So it's what is the minimum that you have to do, the minimum to care for fruit trees. I tell my story, I talk about my mistakes, and I put in there, this is what you need to do. If you do these things, you're good. If you want to do even more, even better. But this is what you need to do. So, that's it? 5 more minutes? Okay. And free resources you were mentioning. So what I'm going to do is, if you guys are interested, I have a newsletter list, and on my website, orchardpeople.com. So each month, I publicize, I say, okay, I've done a blog on Hascat berries, or I've done a film about making fermented apple cider, or whatever. So that's what's in these newsletters. The other thing that I do is I tell you what my radio show is about that month. And I've done some great ones on really different topics, whether it's a disease like fire blight and I bring in an expert, or whether it's a new kind of berry that is some sort of crazy hybrid that I'm interested in. So I speak to 2 experts every month. And the radio show is free. You can listen live. You can email in your questions for my guests. And if you are not available on the last Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m., you can also download the podcast. They're all available. And then finally, this year I'm going to be offering some free webinars online as well, and I'll be notifying people. So I do a webinar called The 10 Secrets of Fruit Tree Care, where I go through the 10 key things that I feel are the main things you need to do to care for your trees. So hopefully we will talk later. You can ask questions. I look forward to hearing your experiences and what you guys have to say. And I would be happy to answer any questions.